My name is Diana Hoke. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale, and I wanted to thank Lake Park for having us here. Thank all of our volunteers for helping us out. And this will be on Facebook Live, so you will be able to access it later on if anyone you know did not make it today. Thank you also to our candidates for coming today. The League of Women Voters of Roselle, I have to read our nonpartisan policy, does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The purpose of candidate forums and debates is to allow voters an opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues face-to-face, to stimulate public interest in the campaign, and to provide the candidates an opportunity to engage with their constituents. So thank you again for being here. Events like this we consider them part of our core mission as the League. We are also involved in the mock elections at the high school level, voter registration events, and as you all know, public information events as well. I just want to announce 4 quick little things that I think are interesting. This is Women's History Month, and women are indeed making history this month with unprecedented numbers running at all over the United States. It's wonderful. So we'd like to see that. Next year is the centennial anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, when women got the right to vote. So our league and others will be doing all sorts of different events to help celebrate that. And we hope that you keep your eyes and ears open and perhaps even join us in some of those events. And let's see, this, that, the other. We recently adopted a position on climate change at the national level. The LWVRB didn't actually have a climate change position. So we could not lobby specifically on that. We had to sort of derive any lobbying efforts from other positions that we held on the environment. And that dovetails nicely into our calendar, because we happen to be holding an event on April 8th at the Bloomingdale Library on clean energy in DuPage. So that's something that we hope you can all join us at. Let me see if I've covered everything. Okay. Today at our forum, here on stage, we will have discussions for the Bloomingdale Village Trustee position that is open, position or positions, I should actually know that. 2 of our 4 invitees were able to attend today. Well, said they would attend. It turns out there's only 1, but we are still allowing him to come on stage and discuss his point of view because his opponent did not show up. Normally, if there's only 1, we don't do that. The second race is the College of DuPage. 3 out of the 4 invitees have agreed to attend today. Other candidates who are in races that are not contested will be attending, well, have been invited to attend a meet and greet, which we will hold directly after this forum. I just want to say candidates in uncontested races that were invited include, this is important for you to know that we've invited all these people, the offices, well, I won't say the people, but the offices in Bloomingdale, that included the library trustee, park commissioner, school district 13 board, and the fire protection district 1. In Itasca, and obviously some of these cross municipal lines, these are just approximations, the village trustee, library trustee, park commissioner, fire trustee, and district 11 board. In Medina, we have the park commissioner, school district 11. In Roselle, we have the village trustee, library trustee, park commissioner, school district 12 board. We also had the high school district 108 board. So all these races were uncontested. What does that say about our democracy? That's another reason that the League of Women Voters feels that our work is so important, and thank you for supporting us in that work. Things like gerrymandering of districts and campaign finance issues are part of the force that drives people to not run, and we end up with all these uncontested races. All right, that was my rant. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance before I introduce our moderator. If you feel like standing, do so. If not, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. I always forget that indivisible part, which I guess might be a metaphor. All right, and now I'd like to introduce our moderator. I just want to She is going to review the ground. She has reviewed the ground rules with the candidates. She is league trained and from out of the area, so she does not have a horse in this race. And she will go over the rest of those things with you. Please welcome Patty Lackman, who is from the League of Women Voters of Central Kane County. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you. So much stuff up here. Okay, thank you. So I would like Mr. Ackerman to come on up. And as Diana said, I am from Central Kane County, so I never heard it that I don't have a horse in this race, but I'm from out of town. So we know about the candidates forums like this that are sponsored to inform you all about what issues your candidates have their stand on, the issues that are important to you. So, with no further ado, we're going to talk about the fact that the questions, there are people in the audience from league members that have index cards and pens to allow you to submit your questions. They will be reviewed by question reviewers in the back for appropriateness and clarity, and then we will ask them. Not every question can be asked because of time constraints. On behalf of the League of Women Voters in the audience, we thank Mr. Ackerman for participating. We have timekeepers in the front with their particular little signs that say 30 seconds and stop. So when Mr. Ackerman, when the stop sign comes up, please finish your statement and then stop. Let's talk about Mr. Ackerman, starting with a 2-minute opening. Why are you running?
Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Vince Ackerman, and I'm seeking re-election for Village Trustee of Bloomingdale. Before I introduce myself, I want to take a moment to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this event. Events like this are very important to the residents of our community because ultimately the villages, the school boards, taxing bodies of the like are very important because they actually impact you the most. So thank you for hosting this. A little bit about me. My wife Suzanne and I moved to Bloomingdale 12 years ago. The reason we moved to Bloomingdale, we were looking for a place to both set our roots, to help our children grow, looking for excellent schools, and we found that in Bloomingdale. We have 2 children, Alyssa, who's a freshman at Lombard North, and Zachary, who's a 6th grader at Stratford Middle School. I currently am a global product management leader for Deloitte, and for the last 8 years, I've devoted significant amounts of time as a public servant. I served 4 years on the CCSD 93 school board before seeking election for the Bloomingdale Village Trustee position. Outside of this, I'm passionate about teaching life lessons to our youth, serving as a youth softball coach for the last 10 years and a basketball coach for 6 years. Over the last 4 years, we've seen considerable growth in Bloomingdale. We've seen major retail developments such as Mariano's, as well as the creation of family-centered activities such as the fireworks display and the Old Town revitalization. Bloomingdale offers considerable experiences to its residents and its visitors. We must continue to stabilize the retail base to be the business-friendly board to continue to make this an attractive community to live, shop, and own a business in. I thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the first question, and you have a minute to answer. And there are several similar questions. What is your opinion on density when Indian Lakes is developed?
To start out with Indian Lakes, we are currently still in the planning process. As many know, where things sat in terms of the development type, the request that they originally came in with, there was a lot of discussion around that in terms of our municipal code, the type of development. When we look at the density, there's actually a lot of things that have to be considered with Indian Lakes, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer in a minute. But as our planning process continues, we're expecting to see answers to things like Flooding. So there's significant flooding in the Indian Lakes neighborhood. There's been some changes made that have alleviated that, but obviously introducing new housing would bring up more concerns. Traffic is another concern. So these are things that have to work its way through the planning process before it comes to the village board, before we can make those decisions.
What are your thoughts on the senior housing development at Indian Lakes?
So in terms of the type of housing, my first and foremost concern about Indian Lakes and any type of development on there are the things I mentioned. As a resident, considering things like traffic, how much traffic will that add to the area, considering flooding, to the area. Those to me are pretty significant concerns for our residents. In terms of the type of housing, that to me doesn't have as much impact as it does in terms of the actual development.
Thank you. How valuable is Stratford as a tax base to Bloomingdale?
So we've talked about initially Indian Lakes, now we've brought up Stratford. Those are kind of two cornerstones of Bloomingdale. How significant is it? It is still a significant tax base for us. So much so that we are working with our local taxing bodies to create a TIF district in order for the mall to reinvest in itself, to bring additional retailers there. As we look at some of the changes that are coming, things like Woodman's, those are going to add significant sales tax revenues back to the village. And we're looking for the mall to continue to pursue additional entities to come in and revitalize that mall. It's in a tough location in the sense that it's not Woodfield, it's not Oak Brook, but it can still be a very significant mall for people to travel to.
Do the entertainment businesses now in Stratford generate tax revenue?
So short answer, yes. I actually had dinner at 25 West last night. What I'll say is the recent additions to the mall have brought sales tax revenues to the village. Things like 25 West, obviously the movie theater. There's a lot of businesses in there that are contributing very well to both their own success, but also to the village's success. We're looking forward to having additional businesses to continue that forward progress with the mall.
Thank you. Does Bloomingdale allow video gaming? If so, why? If not, why not?
So to the first question, do we allow video gaming? Yes, we do. We do restrict the usage of video gaming to existing restaurants with liquor licenses. What we do not allow is the creation of, I guess what I would call video gaming cafes that you see in other communities, such as they sometimes go by names of Lucky's and Dottie's and things like that. These are existing businesses looking for additional revenue. Obviously, we make a licensing fee on top of that as a village, but they are existing businesses that are looking for additional opportunities to raise additional revenue. They already have existing liquor licenses. It's just part of the existing business, as opposed to being a business solely devoted to video gaming.
Thank you. On another topic, it seems counterintuitive to place 3 grocery stores within spitting distance of each other. All 3 would be competing for the same dollars. Can Bloomingdale support this? Dominic's already failed.
Can you repeat the last part? Sorry.
Can Bloomingdale support this, the 3 grocery stores in spitting distance? Dominic's already failed.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the 3 grocery stores, it's an excellent question. All 3 cater to really what I think of as different markets. And so Woodman's is a grocery store only, typically a little bit lower cost type price point. Whereas Mariano's, a little bit more on the higher end side of things. And Meijer is full service, very similar to what a super Walmart is. All 3 serve a different purpose. Is there the potential of some cannibalization of business from one to the other? There is. But certainly I think loyal shoppers to each of those different businesses will find ways to continue to shop at those businesses. I know personally, as I look at a Woodman's versus a Mariano's, for example, I may be looking to shop or purchase different products at each store, and I can see the use of shopping at all 3 on any given day.
Thank you. You can do my grocery shopping. Are there any plans to take over and complete the housing development located on Springfield and Lawrence behind the Ace Hardware? Builder went bankrupt, and it's an eyesore. The majority of built homes are vacant.
So the village continues to work with the bank on that. So yes, it did foreclose. There have been some plans put in place through the foreclosure courts to finish that community. There's been several developers that have been interested in purchasing up the remainder of the lots and continue and complete that development. As a village, we continue to stay involved and look for ways to assist. Unfortunately, we're not going to buy the property ourselves and get into the real estate development, that type of business. But we do stay very close to that, and there are a few active proposals out there to continue and complete that work.
Thank you. What's the issue with the permits for Steamboat Barbecue?
That's a good question. So I'll be the first to say I don't know the answer, but it is something that certainly I can follow up and send information back to the league on that.
Thank you. Where, if anywhere, could the current budget be trimmed? And conversely, where are the areas that the budget does not adequately fund? What are the areas?
That's a good question. I'm thinking that's an excellent question. From a budgetary standpoint, where does it not accurate or adequately fund? I'm going to go kind of second first. In terms of our village staff, it is very lean. We're running probably a couple people under in terms of where our headcount might be. Some of that is sharing of duties, and certainly as our retail base grows, we should look for opportunities to add additional staff, primarily in our business and community development area. That's one area that is very active, and I know that with having one individual, it's a little bit difficult. In terms of where the budget will be cut, quite honestly, we run very lean. Every year we run a balanced budget. We're making do with less and looking for opportunities to reinvest in the community. That quite honestly, in the economic downturn, there were many projects that kind of stayed by the wayside, and now we're revisiting those at this time. So I feel comfortable that we're very well balanced, and we certainly could spend more money on staffing, I think, moving ahead.
Thank you. What is the most important issue facing Bloomingdale at this time?
So the most important issue is just continuing the progress that we've made. Over the last 4 years, I think I saw a number just recently. We were going through a review of business licenses and that there have been 130 businesses, new businesses brought into Bloomingdale over the last 4 years. There's obviously some big ones that we all see and know, and there's also been some large losses from them all. We need to continue to do the things as a board to make it easy to do business in Bloomingdale. In addition, continue our strong partnership with the mall to look for new businesses to take over some of those anchors. Obviously, the loss of Macy's and Carson's. Ultimately, there's going to be other businesses probably that may see the wayside. Everybody reads the business section and sees some of those businesses. But I think it's continuing that growth and continuing to stabilize that retail base.
Okay, unless there are more questions from the audience, this is the last question. What is one good idea you have to better Bloomingdale that no one else is talking about? Your secret.
So, as the parent of two younger kids, one of the things that I think is significant is the impacts of vaping and that's a big thing right now, and I'm sure those of you with high school kids or high school age kids will know what I'm talking about. We need to work, our police department we should be working very closely with our county to, make sure we're getting into the schools and have the students understand that, one, it's illegal, two, here's the impacts if you get caught, and three, working with the health department to understand these are things that, here's the health impacts to it. I know I hear stories from my daughter. She's 14. She's in high school about friends doing it. It's not something I want in my house, and it's certainly something I hope you don't want in your house. And I really want, I think that's something we need to take a more active stance on.
Thank you. Okay, and now we have one more question.
Yeah,
We have one more question.
that's to go about disorders.
Oh, she just thought about it.
It's a surprise question. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not from here, so I'm going to ask you a question because I can at the microphone. How do you think the village is handling the opioid crisis?
So our Director of Public Safety, Frank G. Maurice, is very active in the DuPage County Opioid Task Force. They work very actively in the schools to fill the information in there. Unfortunately, Bloomingdale's in a tough space because we're right off of 290. There are stories, there's well-documented stories of students from this school who, unfortunately perished because of the opioid crisis. It's getting the message out. Our police are out there working very closely. The one thing, that is great is our police are all educated on how to use Narcan, and we saved multiple lives utilizing that, and we need to continue to do that. Unfortunately, it's a bad situation, but I think our police department, our village is working very actively to get the message out about it, and getting out in the community and able to do something, God forbid something bad happens.
Thank you. We do have one more question, which kind of follows on the same path. In schools, do you believe that mental health is adequately dealt with?
So I'm gonna pull on my District 93 school board days. I will say that in some cases, yes. I think there are some mental health issues that are addressed. I think there are some that are not as well diagnosed as others. So certainly students, one that is common is kind of the attention deficit disorder. Isn't as well diagnosed as probably it could be. I've seen all ranges, and this is my own personal experience, both as a school board member but also as a parent, where mental health issues are addressed properly. But there have been plenty of stories that I've heard where they haven't been. And as a school board member, I would get involved in those cases and work with the parents to make sure they're working with their principals and superintendents appropriately. But not everybody has access to those people. And because of that, I felt, that I needed to do that. Sorry. But I felt that it was the right situation because at the end of the day, the kids that are in school right now are our future, and we want them to be successful. And whether that's as a lawyer, a doctor, a tradesman, it doesn't matter. We want them to be successful, and they need to get the right support and the right education early, or it goes undiagnosed, and then as they get older, they're the ones that are kind of pushed aside, and we don't want that. That's not what we want for our kids.
Thank you. And now we'll go to your closing.
Well, I had a nice opening done, but I didn't do a closing. But first thing, I just wanted to thank everybody. These questions are the ones that our residents are certainly coming out with, quite regularly. And the two main ones in Bloomingdale, obviously, are Indian Lakes and Stratford. We're doing what we can to help support the village and help support the village's vision with both of those projects. Certainly those are things that over the next 6 months we're hoping to see some change. Once things start moving at Stratford, once the plan commission, and that's one thing to remember with Indian Lakes and those of you that are Bloomingdale residents, and actually all of you because you're in the area, we will have public hearings on that. When it gets to the plan commission, come on out and voice your opinion. We need the public to tell us and give us ideas of what they're thinking in those cases. Because I'm a big supporter of that. I'm a person that likes to hear all the viewpoints and come to consensus at the end of the day. But thank you for this forum, and thank you for the support everyone has given us thus far, and we look forward to the next 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman, and let's give him a round of applause. And so we will start with the candidates that are present for the College of DuPage. We have Annette Corrigan and Dan Bailey, and we Maureen Dunn, I'm sorry. I'm at a disadvantage not being from here. Maureen Dunn and Mark Incroci are not present. They were all invited. So we will start, and straws were drawn, or numbers picked, and Ms. Corrigan, if you could go first with your opening, please.
Is this on? Is this on?
Sorry.
It should be on the body of the...
Yeah, we won't start
Test,
you until
test. Okay.
you're on.
All right.
You
Hello.
don't start the clock until you start talking. You're on.
Hello, my name's Annette Corrigan, and I'm the mother of 4 children, 2 of whom have been students in varying capacities at the College of DuPage. My other 2 will also be attending classes at the College of DuPage. They're both in high school at this time. The other 2, one's at University of Iowa and one's at Indiana University. We've been residents of District 502 for 28 years, and we've been in Wheaton for 25 of those years. I attended Marquette University for undergraduate and law school, and that's where I met my husband, Richard. He goes by Chip, but we've been together for about 25 years as well. I've been a very active leader in the community all these years, whether it was my kids' schools, whether it was our church. In fact, I still run our church fish fry, the Park District. I was an Eagle Scout coordinator for our Boy Scout troop, and I continue to be a merit badge leader there. And also DuPage County Bar Association, where I'm on the editorial board for our bar journal. I've also sat on the board for Big Brothers Big Sisters as part of my time here in the District 502 area. I'm running for a seat on the board because my family established our home here 28 years ago, and I care about our community, and I want to be an effective leader. But it was our personal experience with COD that really made me decide to run, and that is because my oldest child has developmental disabilities, and COD had no program for him to attend college and to continue his education. And that is why he's now a student over at University of Iowa. Recently, I've learned that about a year and a half ago, COD finally started to implement a program called Coach. And so my son will be a student there in the fall. I feel very strongly that we continue to make the education at COD affordable and that we make it available to as many people as we can. I am very interested in keeping the status quo. We came out of a very dark period at the College of DuPage, and things are much better financially from where they were. I hope to look at our 2 big issues are finding a new president and also addressing our decreasing enrollment at the College of DuPage. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for holding this forum. I appreciate what the League of Women Voters is doing. I'm running. My name is Dan Bailey, and I'm running to serve on the College of DuPage Board of Trustees to make sure that the students, their talented teachers and staff, area business owners, and we taxpayers know that COD is managed effectively to benefit all of us. I'm here because COD has always been here for me. When I was a teenager, I had a dream of being like Albert Schweitzer, as a doctor who went to Africa to help the needy. But I ended up working on the railroad. Good pay, but long, irregular hours. After 31 years, I couldn't work on call 24/7 anymore. So I was able to go back to COD, study nursing, become a registered nurse. And I worked in a free clinic, and one day this woman, a regular client, walks in and tells me a story, and she touched me. And then I realized that I had been able to achieve my dream of helping people from Africa, because they had come to me, I didn't have to go to Africa. COD had made that happen. And I want to be here to make sure that COD is excellent and affordable and reaches out to all the people that can use it like it had been for me. I'm happy with a lot of the changes that have been going on. I've been watching it COD since before 2009, but there are some things that need to change. There's problems with transparency, there's secrecy in appointments, and in hiring practices that we could stand to change. I want to be the person that helps change that and works on. I want to work on some other things like improving student enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with the first question, and we do a round robin, so because there's two, they just flip-flop every question. So Mr. Bailey's going first on this one. What kinds of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice at COD?
Well, I'd like to address a couple of things in particular. But I want to make it so that everybody feels welcome at COD. I think that, for instance, for immigrants have an incredibly hard road to go in this climate, and we need to ask them what is needed and make sure it happens. So that's one thing. One thing that would help would be if the board would issue a welcoming statement to immigrants. And we could also have trainings for the staff and for counselors for dealing with immigrants and also LGBTQ and people with disabilities and people who needs a little bit extra help. So those are a couple things, and also making sure that we make it possible and accessible for everybody that can use COD.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, I think so much of the problems that exist in those two areas have to do with not having enough exposure. And I am all for having programs where there are speaker series. In fact, I'm going to one in the next couple of weeks on racial issues and really getting into the history of it all and being able to speak intelligently upon it. And I think that having clubs that are available and more open to all segments of our society, I think are very important. You know, we tend to focus on those two things, and I keep going back to my own experience. It's not just, you know, there's so many segments of the population that feel isolated or feel as though they're vulnerable, and even people that are disabled have the same issues, and they want to feel a part, and they want to feel safe in their environment. And I think it starts at the top with the leadership. It needs to be promoted in our classrooms with our teachers, and it needs to be part of what happens with our peers. And I think that there needs to be something implemented at the student level and in each one of those areas.
Thank you. Kind of along the same vein, do you believe COD's staff is trained to recognize and deal with mental illness in students? And do you believe that students have access to mental health services at COD?
I haven't had any exposure to that area, the area of mental illness, but it is a very important one, and I think that it's going to have to be something that we look into. So I think one of the first things I would do as a new trustee is I would do what I'm doing right now, and that is reaching out to individuals in the COD community and finding out from them what some of the issues are. And if there isn't adequate training going on right now, that is something that we're going to have to implement and look at very seriously, especially in the culture we're living in today. So that would probably be the first thing I do. The best way for me to learn really is face-to-face, having that presence. You can read all you want online, you can hear about it from other people, but until you talk to the people that are directly affected, you really don't know what the issues are and what's going on. So my approach would be to talk to the teachers and the staff and find out what is in place now and where the need is now, and then find the best route to try to address it most effectively.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Yes, well, I'm not aware of how exactly they're dealing with mental health issues at COD now, but I'm a registered nurse and I've done a little bit of working with mental health issues. I've also taken a class called mental health first aid, and we could make that available to staff that need it if that would help in addressing this issue. I took that class. I thought it was a good idea. And also I feel like that my being a nurse trained at COD will help me to to understand and appreciate and have more intelligent input on the issues dealing with the healthcare programs at COD and this issue as well.
Thank you. Question 3, starting with Mr. Bailey. How safe are the students that take classes at COD?
Well, I feel safe when I go to COD, and I've taken classes over a long period of time, but I have heard some people are concerned about areas of parking lots that are well lit, so that's something that should be addressed as well, is looking at making sure that people feel safe and that if there's any concern at all, that they have help. I think there's a way to summon the security from various areas on COD, but I have never felt the need myself to use it, so we could take a look at that.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
Yes. I've spent time over at COD as well, prior even to this election situation. I've been in attendance over at the MAC for events, and especially over there, it's very well lit. I think physically, the parking lots, at least the ones I have been in, I feel like they're very well lit. They've got the blue lights where you can go and ignite them if there's an issue, if you feel like you need to contact security. I am aware that there are some parking lots that are more remote that I think that I would feel unsafe in if I was there. I also think we need to look at what sort of, there's online safety issues I think that need to be addressed for all students. And I think if we don't have programs in place right now to address online safety, I think that is, I think that's something all of our kids need to be educated in, starting from a very young age until, through college. I could use additional training on online security and safety. So, but I think there's always areas where you can improve safety for our students and our faculty.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey. When the stop sign goes up, you can finish your sentence. We just don't want you to have a couple more paragraphs.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bailey.
I think I answered it.
Oh, you did. So, Mr. Bailey, this question is, or Ms. Corrigan,
Yeah.
Should teachers be allowed to or required to carry a gun at COD?
Should they be required?
Should they be allowed or required?
Allowed or required. There are schools where that is being implemented. I'm not at the point where I think that is the answer yet. Obviously, schools are targets. We all know that. It's a very sensitive subject. I think when it comes down to it, I think it's going to have to be the choice of the individual teacher if a program like that is put in place, whether or not they want to take it to that next level. I would never want to require anybody to have to do that. So, but I think that if there was something implemented by the school, if the administration, if the leadership, if the Board of Trustees felt like that was something, a direction we were going in, it would be something that, I don't think we're there yet, but I think it's something we're going to have to talk about, and it would always be a person's choice, not a requirement.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
I think that safety probably would be best handled by the security staff and the police, and I don't think at this point we need to have guns on campus. I'm hoping that we can reduce the level of violence in our society. I have a personal experience when I was a kid, and I grew up in DuPage, and I went to Chicago to do some social justice work as a freshman, really very sophomoric. And I was out there, and I got jumped a couple of times by local gangbangers. They just beat me up a few times. If it was like now, I would be dead. So I think that we really need to just reduce the number of guns available to people that shouldn't have them. Just really, I think that would improve our safety.
Thank you. And We'll start with you, Mr. Bailey. How should the COD board address faculty complaints that their faculty members' concerns? Start over. How should the COD board address faculty complaints and not treat their concerns as a low priority?
Well, they've done a couple of good steps by putting the faculty, representatives of the faculty have a table at the Board of Trustee meetings, and I don't think they had that before. But I would say that I would meet with the faculty, or offer to meet with the faculty on a regular basis, or representatives from them, and and I would truly listen, and take their concerns seriously. And I think that would be a start. Other things, give the faculty reasons when you do something. Like one of the appointed, there was two very highly sought after employees that they wanted to hire, and the administration approved of them, all the faculty approved of them, even the president approved of them, but then the COD board turned down those two very well-qualified potential professor hires. We should at least have given a reason.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
I would suspect that there is already some channel in place where if there is a faculty concern, that it is taken up the channels of leadership and be brought to the attention of the board. If there is a recurring or repeated issue that continues to surface, obviously that is something that has to be addressed by the board itself. I keep saying this term over and over, I think, in my talks and in meeting with people, and the word presence means so much to me in my life as a parent, my life as a leader, my life as a lawyer. You need to have a presence no matter where you are if you're a leader. You can't do that from a distance. And if there is a problem, I would hope that any person, whether it's faculty or staff or student, felt that they wanted to bring an issue to my attention, that I would make myself available to the extent that I can, of course. I have family and I work and things like that, but I think presence is so important. So that's what I would probably say.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the turnover of the COD board in the office of the president? I'll start with you, Ms. Corrigan.
I think it's time that we have some stability. I'm very interested in this issue of the new president. That's our #1 issue right now at COD. That is something that whoever's on the board, you're going to have to address that first, and which is why I made myself available and attended the committee meeting for the hiring of the president. I was the only one in the audience. I was the only candidate there. That's how important that issue is. And if I become a Board of Trustee member, I want to hit the ground running when I get there, April 3rd or whatever the date is, and not learn what's going on after the fact, because they're in the middle of the hiring process at that point in time. I don't think the turnover, Mr. Napolitano taking over the chair, there was that consistency there. But I think all people in the College of DuPage, and I've talked to people that are not faculty, that they're in other positions at COD, students, they're ready for some stability. They're ready for some consistency. There's a lot of turnover at all levels. And so I think that is something that's greatly needed right now at COD, is some consistency.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Well, the turnover at COD, people seem to be coming on the board so they can advance to higher positions, use that as a springboard. That's one thing. Another thing is secrecy and the lack of transparency. The appointment of Heidi Holen to fill a board seat. Deanna Mazzocchi knew she was going to resign. She could have resigned in time for the board to come up for election. That would have been the best way to do it. But then the way that they did it, we didn't know that it was going to happen. We just found out, and they didn't. They announced it, or had it happen at the board meeting. It was a secret process, and we should have had input. And for the presidential search, we should have that kind of input, like they did for the last president's search. What they did is they had the finalists come and talk to the public for 10 minutes, and then the public was able to ask them questions. That's the kind of thing we should do. And then the last board vacancy, the public knew about it, people volunteered, and we were able to vet them.
Mr. Bailey, so many young adults don't seem to be able to find their path. Some are college graduates. What can COD do to help these kids?
Well, counseling helps, and there's a educational pathways project, which, although it's not perfect, it focuses on counseling the students to help them find their goal, and when they have a goal, to line up classes that will work with that goal. I've heard that there are some issues with it regarding that people feel like they might be straitjacketed into a group of classes and not be able to have more educational freedom. So we want to take care of those issues while looking at this process, and make sure that we not only make it an efficient process, but serve the interests of the students, including being able, sometimes it's good to be able to wander in education, to find out different things. You might find out by taking a strange class that just appeals to you, you might find your goal in life. Anyways.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, I think Dan's referring to that guided pathways model that is being implemented at the college, and where they look at, it's my understanding, they look at the whole student. They look at what their interests are, what their objectives in employment may be or career may be. It's not a matter of throwing a dart at a dartboard, and they're trying, so I think it's really about having the conversation, getting to know the student, finding out what their interests are, helping them achieve their end result. You know, as a student myself, I took a variety of classes. I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I was going to end up. And so they weren't wasted classes, but they weren't classes that were really targeted to what my final objective was. So I think keeping the conversation going through your guidance counselors, through your teachers and faculty, even having group meetings, student meetings to discuss interests. I think a lot of times too, students don't know what's out there, what they can do with their careers and their education. I tell people all the time, you can go to law school, you don't have to be a lawyer. You can do other things with that degree.
I'm on my 5th career, so. Okay, Ms. Corrigan. There are a couple of issues for senior citizens. Senior programs are expensive, and parking is very tough. Long walks, which are tough in bad weather. Any thoughts?
Yes, I like the idea of having shuttles. I love shuttles. In fact, I've walked many times over to COD in this terrible weather the last couple of months for meetings, to meet with people, I was at the MAC for a DCBA, DuPage County Bar Association event, and I was parked right at the bar. I wouldn't mind a shuttle of some kind. I think that's very important. It's a long distance for senior citizens to walk. It's long for me to walk in high heel shoes, so I understand. I think something like that would be the best approach, especially with how far some of our parking is.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Well, that sounds like a good idea, but I think I'm getting close to that senior citizen age, and I'd like to just maybe prioritize some parking for two groups of people. One is senior citizens, so that they can get close in parking, and the other is for high occupancy vehicles, so that there would be less of a parking problem if we could target close parking spaces to people who have more than one person in their vehicle. So that reduces the number of vehicles needed and reduces the amount of prairie that we have to pave over for parking. And it still improves the parking situation at COD, which I understand as from going there, it's not easy, always easy to find a place to park when you have a class at 1 o'clock.
On that same note, is there a plan to improve the parking? at COD that you're aware of? Mr. Bailey?
Well, my plan is to start off with a high occupancy vehicle idea. I'd also like to provide alternatives, get better bus service to COD so that we reduce the need for parking. If more people are taking buses, if the buses are better scheduled and connect with the trains better, we can talk to our county board members to influence the bus routes. And another thing would be covered parking, secure parking for bicyclists. I took my bicycle to COD, and it's nice to have a lockable place, but if you come out and it's raining and your seat's wet, it's not so good. So I think that we can do all the creative things to improve the parking situation without building parking structures, which I understand are about $20,000 per space if you build a parking structure, and it's about 6 or 7 just to pave over the grass.
Thank you. Ms. Corbin?
I was at the last College DuPage meeting where the architects and designers were present going over the facilities master plan, and I do know that parking was a discussion at one point on the western part of the campus. It was being discussed about if we were to start building more over there, what about the parking, what's the plan for that? So I do know that parking is under discussion. I know that they haven't finalized the master plan for the redevelopment of the facilities at this point in time. At least that's my understanding. I'm not super well educated on it yet. I hope to be as a trustee member. But I believe there was a question asked about a parking deck. One of the, I think, board members, might have been Mr. Napolitano, brought something up about a parking deck maybe on that end of campus if there ends up being more construction or design in that part of the campus. But with all these questions, it's obvious that it's a big issue on campus.
Okay. Ms. Corbin, regarding declining enrollment, what do you see as strategies to make COD a more attractive option for high school and returning students?
I'm aware that we've decreased since 2014 in enrollment by 15.5%. That's from about 29,400 students to 26,000 students. The program that I'm interested in for developmental disabled students like my son, I know will have a direct impact on enrollment. I'm very aware, because of my involvement at Marian Joy, Easter Seals, Ray Graham, and other organizations like that, where there are people in our community with developmental disabilities who have gone without access to higher education, to skill training, vocational skill training, life skills, career development, just like my son. They've not had that type of access. Once the word gets out that COD has such a program going, I think we're going to have to make some real space available for that program. I think it's going to grow. I'm also in line with Mr. Incrosi with the vocational skills and bringing the vocations back to our schools, both in high school and in college. There's a real need for our vocations to continue to develop.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey?
First, thank you. First, I've been going to meetings. In 2015, I ran for College DuPage Board of Trustees, and I've been going to meetings recently as well. And the decrease in enrollment has to do with a few different factors, but it also affects the bottom line. And decrease in enrollment, it decreases tuition fees, and then we need to deal with that. So I want to make COD attractive to all sorts of different kinds of people that aren't using it now, like immigrants and people with disabilities, people that are slow and learners, and other folks. But the other thing is, we can market COD as a fast track to a good job and a good life. We can low tuitions, make sure our programs serve the needs of non-traditional students, quality career pathway counseling, help figuring it out, fast track, low cost, college degree, 2+2, 3+1s, and then fast track job training for immediate employment, earn while you learn, and that'll help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, as a non-traditional age student and the parent of an adult child with developmental disabilities who was only marginally successful in the 3 semesters he attended COD, what specifically are your areas regarding a pathway for the DD community in achieving their goals? kind of alluded to it a little. Let's
Pardon
get
me?
a little more specific.
Um,
What specifically are your ideas regarding a pathway for developmentally disabled community in achieving their goals?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have a lot of specifics. I would reach out and find out from people and from experts what they think would help. I'd ask my sister, who raised her daughter when they told her not to, even when she had Down syndrome. And my niece has had a very successful life. She used Ray Graham programs and all sorts of different programs. So there's ways to do that. I know because I know my niece Kelly, who's had a lot of success with that. So I think it needs to be. I think I need to do some research.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
It would be no different really than the guided pathways approach that would be offered to the traditional students. It would just be part of the developmental disabilities program, and that program, as I indicated earlier, is a three-pronged program that COD is beginning to develop in the areas of life skills, so that these individuals that are able to may someday live independently, vocational skills, and the career development. But a key piece to all of that is going to be establishing relationships in the community, in the business community, for jobs for those individuals. I was able to advocate for my son with Lifetime Fitness to obtain for him a job in the child care. My son would like to have a child care certification. And so I would see as a part of that approach, you need to develop relationships in our business community to find employers who are willing to work with people that have challenges. But also you have to learn first from the student, what is it that they're looking for? You know, you have to have that dialogue, but you have to have those relationships so you have something to offer those students when they're ready to leave COD.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan, in your search for a new president, I hope you would be more diligent and conservative. Salary, separation, background research, etc. Do you think that you can do that?
Absolutely. I think one of the best decisions that the current board made was hiring. They hired a search firm, and they're doing it with people who know what to do and what to look for. They don't have the final say on who's going to be hired, but they certainly know what the board is looking for, what sort of the credentials are, the beginning credentials, and then they help to narrow it down. From there, the board will make the ultimate decision on who's going to be our president. Again, conversation, dialogue, background research, all of those things are so important. It's much harder to get somebody out of a position than it is to bring them in, so you need to do your due diligence up front in any decision you make, and you need to do that work up front. Yeah. Train of thought.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Well, let's see. They've hired a search firm, and I think that's a good start. I'd like to have more input. I'd love public to have more input on the search committee for the next president. But of course, we want to make sure that we go over the contract and make sure we have an excellent contract lawyer to make sure we don't get snookered again like we did with before. I want to look for somebody whose goal will be improving education at COD, care for employees, efficient use of taxpayers' investment in this great resource. Somebody with a proven history of working together with all to maintain somebody working with all the educational stakeholders to bring them together to work to maintain and improve this great institution. Somebody with academic as well as management background. The academic so he understands what's needed.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, does your campaign have a social media presence? If so, how would you apply that tool once elected to office to inform and educate the community?
Well, I am a little bit of a senior citizen, so I do have some help with almost senior citizen anyways. I do have some help with social media, and I'm going to keep that going. I've got Facebook and a website, and that's one way of communicating with people, and I'll learn more about the other things, Instagram and Twitter and things like that. But it's a good way to communicate back and forth if I can answer questions that people would pose to me.
Ms. Corrigan.
Yes, I have a Facebook presence on my website where I also have my cell phone and an email that I check every single day. I am not a Twitter person, but I do think that that would be important to have as well if I were to become a board member. I do think I do want to have that access. I want people to have access to me. I want to know what they're saying. We need to have our finger on the pulse of what's going on, and I can't think of a better way to do it. I also hope people go the old-fashioned way and just approach us after a meeting and say they have a concern, or come to a meeting and say they have a concern. I also have 4 children who are very, very good on social media, so I do expect to be, and I've already had some help from them on the Facebook, so I didn't really have much of a presence before. It wasn't something I was interested before, but in this type of a situation, running for an elected position, you definitely have to be on social media. I'm also on it almost every single day. I invite people to email me with any questions and concerns or ideas, and I have had people reach out to me and I've responded to them. My rule is response within 24 hours, as it is with my work at my law firm.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan, what is the most important issue facing the college right now, in your opinion?
Finding the best, most qualified president for COD.
Mr. Bailey.
No, that's a very important issue as well. I also think that maintaining high-quality education that's affordable. I want to maintain affordability and reduce, if possible, control and reduce the tuition. That's something I want to work on. It's not something we can do on our own. We'll have to corral the state and federal government to step up to the plate and do more so that we can make COD's great education available to more people, especially people with less resources have more need of it, and that's what I'd like to focus on.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
I already answered that when I said the president, finding the most qualified president.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're running out of space on my page here. Okay, is the Waterleaf Restaurant and the hospitality program paying for itself yet? Mr. Bailey.
That's a good question. I have to say, I don't know, but I would like to have them. I'd like to have it not creating a drain on our finances.
Ms. Corrigan.
I don't have the information on that either, but it should be self-sustaining, in my opinion. And you know, whenever I talk as well about the developmental disability program that I spoke about earlier, I've been often asked how do you see it happening? I mean, the tuition is commensurate with how it's going to be sustained. And when things can't sustain themselves, if there's an issue, then you have to address it. I believe it was just last year there was a daycare center that was in place that really it was really costing the school money. It didn't make sense financially to keep the daycare center open for the few people that were using it. And it's a tough decision to make. And unfortunately, those are the type of decisions that trustees will be making. And so the decision was made to close it. And it's something that I would hope that they're looking into to find the best way to make it. If it's not self-sustaining, that if it's not earning its keep, then we either need to find ways to do it, or it needs to be closed. But like I said, those are the type of questions, decisions you have to make when you're in leadership. They're not always pleasant, but you have to make them.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan, what's one good idea that you have to better the college that no one else is talking about?
Am I repeating myself? It's really, there were so many reasons why I wanted to run for the College DuPage board. But what the clincher for me really was my personal experience and bringing, I know what the mission statement is for the school, and that is making education and all available to all residents of District 502. And it wasn't being addressed by COD. It is now, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so excited to have my son, a student, living home with us, but a student at COD. I don't know that anybody else was talking about it. I couldn't believe that I was a parent of a special needs student in District 502 and didn't know that they had started a program. So that is one I'm going to keep talking about and keep promoting and make sure the word gets out, because I know a lot of people who know nothing about it, and I want to market it, and I want to make sure that all of the high school transition programs are aware of what COD is doing, and that I can help to continue to grow it.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Well, my idea that no one else was talking about is the high occupancy vehicle one, but I've already talked about that, so we can work on that and other we can work on that and other creative ways to make parking more making parking easier at COD and making it more accessible for everyone to use COD.
Thank you. Last question. Starting with Mr. Bailey. Are the satellite campus locations fulfilling the role envisioned for them? Should we have more? Should we have less?
Well, one of the things I think we could do in reaching out to people who don't have resources is having more classes at satellite locations so that people, let's say, that don't have cars could more easily access COD's excellent education. So that's one of the things I would think we could try, along with maybe with some more creative approaches to mixing online and classroom education. So for those who can't get to the main campus.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
I didn't research this myself, but I understand that Innovate DuPage, I believe that's what it's called. It's the incubator, the business incubator, the idea incubator that they have is one of the satellite locations in Glen Ellen Civic Center, I think is where it is at. I understand that that's doing very well. People are very excited about that program and about that location in Glen Ellen. I've been out walking, I've been doing all the things you do as part of a campaign, right? And I've been to all four corners of of our District 502. And I do think that we need more satellite locations. We need to bring what College DuPage has to our residents. Not all residents can make it into the Glen Ellen Wheaton area. So I think the more extensions of our programs and of our college that we have in our community, and it's a lot of ground to cover. And I'm going back out there soon. I think we do need to make more satellite locations available to our residents if we can.
Thank you. I think that's true. I come from Kane County. We have 2 community colleges. So for us to deal with the fact that you all just have one, it's an amazing, amazing venture that you have, and you should be very proud of it. So let's start with the close. Mr. Bailey, you're first.
Well, thank you. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming here in the League of Women Voters. My name's Dan Bailey, and I want to make sure that students, teachers, area business owners, and taxpayers know COD is managed effectively to benefit every one of us. And on the line of my qualifications, I've worked on the Independent Voters of Illinois, and I've got a long history in DuPage. My family has been here for a long time. And worked on locomotive hearing loss, locomotive engineers hearing loss when I was on the railroad. I've always been doing that kind of work. And I strongly believe in the power of education to change lives. I know it has for me. When COD enabled me to completely turn around my career from locomotive engineer to registered nurse, I want to make sure it's there for everybody else. And I think I can help guide COD into a positive future, but I need your help to do it. So please vote for me, Dan Bailey, for COD trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corrigan.
I would like to thank the members of the Roselle-Bloomingdale League of Women Voters for having this today. I think it's so important that our voters have an opportunity to talk with and hear from the candidates that are running for these very, very important positions. I've never run for an elected position before. I'm pursuing this opportunity because I do deeply care about my community. I very much care for ethical and effective leadership. I care about this community. I've been very involved in everything from before I had children to the present time, whether it's my DCBA or Boy Scouts or whatever. I like that term, you know, don't just listen to the words, but look at the deeds. Look at what the individual has done. And if you look at my record and you look what I've done, I have been invested in this community. I've given back. And I will do the same with a position on the board. I will promote financially responsible decision-making because that's really the cloth I'm cut from. I will be a proponent of maintaining the affordability of COD for our students. I want to extend the outreach programs and initiatives. I hope you vote for me on April 2nd in Neck, Oregon for College DuPage Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the formal portion of the afternoon. We encourage you to join us out in the lobby for a reception for candidates that are here for races that are not contested. The Village of Itasca Village Board, the Village of Itasca Library Board, Village of Roselle Village Board candidates, Roselle Park District Board Commissioner candidates, and I'm sure some of our candidates that were up here earlier will stick around. So I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy campaign season to attend the forum. So let's give them a round of applause.
And if we could please give a round of applause to our terrific moderator, Patty Lackman. Thank you so much. And we're going to convene in about 5 or 10 minutes out there in the lobby, so everybody can have a little break real quick. All right. Oh, and I just wanted to remind you one more time, April 8th, Bloomingdale Public Library District will be having a program on clean energy in DuPage. So please join us at 7 p.m.